Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. We have a very important program to share with you today. Our special guest is Ed Holloway, who is a former state representative and has actually was near the World Trade Center when they first tried to blow it up.
Right.
Ed, what have you got there?
Well, recently a woman from Israel, well, actually she was from Egypt, has written a book called The Devil We Don't Know, and she was very explicit in the things that are going on. And one of the things about following what's going on in the Middle East, the so-called Arab Spring, has turned into an Arab Winter. And all of the countries, the elements that have taken over after the revolutions have been the radical part, the ones that are true believers in jihad and the radical sense of it. And their
Which means terrorists.
Yeah, the terrorist groups. And
yeah.
The only guaranteed path to heaven for a Muslim is to die in the process of a jihad against the non-Muslims. So they're revising all of the traditional things, and the people they have overthrown who had a relationship with the West are being replaced by people who are out to destroy not only Israel but the United States.
Now you have a quote here from...
Well, yeah, this is one of the things. There's been a lot of information about the Muslim Brotherhood. And the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, a guy named Mohammed Badi, expressed his views of waging jihad as something that was mandatory. And in a sermon, he stated that the Arab governments that stand in the way of jihad against both Israel and the United States are traitors. Badi, whose populist group now controls the Egyptian parliament and the presidency, stated that Arab and Muslim regimes are betting their people, or betraying their people by failing to confront the Muslims' real enemies, not only Israel but also the United States.
And in other words, they're saying that they need to be killing Americans.
Waging a jihad against both of these infidels is a commandment of Allah that cannot be disregarded. Governments that have no right to stop their people from fighting the United States, they are disregarding Allah's commandment to wage the jihad for His sake with their money and their lives, so that Allah's world and His word will reign supreme over all the non-Muslims. So that is the direct quote of the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood
in Egypt.
In Egypt.
Right.
And Egypt has been under a tremendous amount of pressure. The Coptics and any Christians that are there are being subject to beatings, to killings, and they're trying to purge the complete country and all the Islamic countries of anybody who is not a Muslim.
Well, you know, Ed, there's a huge amount of information exploding out about how Islam and the Muslim Brotherhood are trying to come into America and take it over like they have in England and France, and really about 50% of the world. Isn't that right?
Exactly.
About half the world is now under Muslim
influence, if nothing else. The control is getting deeper into the more radical form of Islam, and there's no way of the American public has been made aware of what is actually going on, and it's right here in Jefferson County with a brand new mosque going in on Westport Road, being funded by the Saudi Arabia, that'll be staffed by Wahhabis, which are a radical group. There's also a new one going in near Fort Knox, and there are several hundred new mosques being built all over the United States.
I know there's one down on River Road, too.
Well, that was the original. That was a small one, and now it's grown. The numbers are increasing, and as we mentioned earlier, that went from 1 million in 1970, there's now 9 million Muslims in the United States. And all of them are under the laws of Islam to follow the jihad,
which
against
means
anyone who
take
is
over
non-Muslim,
and murder all the Americans they can.
and to reestablish an international caliphate over all the known world.
Yeah, like an international one world government
Right.
with
Under
Islam.
under Sharia law.
And now here is a DVD that I got recently. You were there
Right.
when they were showing this. This is about the Muslim Brotherhood and how they pretend to be moderates, but really they are terrorists.
Right.
And they're just waiting for their chance to blow somebody up. And this is by an organization called Act for America, which is run and started by Bridget Gabriel, who is a young woman about 40 or 50 who used to live in Lebanon, which was at that time a Christian nation. And the Muslims came in a little at a time, until they got enough people. And then they murdered all the Christians and kicked them out. And she fled to Israel and then to the United States. And she looked around and says, hey, they're doing the same thing to the United States that they did to Lebanon. So she started this organization. And there are two talks on here. One is by her executive director. His name is Guy something, and the other is by a former FBI agent. And they expose how the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization. Now, that's not speculation. They've got their own Muslim Brotherhood documents that say they're going to eventually take over the United States.
Right.
And it's called part of the information warfare. In other words, and these guys are in the White House. They're advisors. They're pretending to be moderate, but really they're terrorists, and some of them have been prosecuted for terrorism.
All right. There's one other thing that I'd like to give, not quote, but read directly from it. There's a new book that's called The Devil We Don't Know. It's by Nani Darwish, a Egyptian lady who has made it to the United States, who has not only left Islam but has converted to Christianity. And her father was the head of military intelligence for the Egyptian army and was killed in the war of 1967. But I like a direct quote from that book where she states that throughout the Middle East, from the groups such as Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood, to the Arab Socialist and National Nazarites, the goals are the same: a confrontation with Western governments, especially Israel and the United States. And throughout the Muslim world, it is a deep-rooted belief that without this confrontation, the ultimate goal, the Islamic Caliphate, will not be achieved. And just as with Muhammad's example in the 7th century, anything goes in their efforts to achieve such goals.
Now, I guess this is that
that's
same
the
lady.
same lady.
And it looks like she may have written another book called Joys of Muslim Women.
Right.
Is that another book she's written, you
I think she's written a couple of books.
Here again, as she says just what you said. In 1970, there were 100,000 Muslims in the United States. Now there are 9 million. That was in 2008.
Yeah.
So that was 4 years ago. There are probably more than that now. And so she is really spilling the beans on how the Muslims are taking over the United States. It says here, we must prepare ourselves for the reality that within 30 years there will be 50 million Muslims living in America.
One of the things that has happened that bothers me, and you can be compassionate and all that, but we're bringing in large number of refugees from the various countries that have been under these various revolutions. but we don't have a way to check on the backgrounds of the individuals that are being brought in here as so-called refugees. That a lot of them are being used by Muslim terrorist groups to infiltrate their trained terrorists into this country as, quote, refugees. So that's one thing we need to make a concerted effort to find out the background. Similar thing happened with with Cubans during Castro. When the refugees were coming in here, he used that as a cover to infiltrate a number of his operatives into the United States.
This is another video. They're coming out almost every day, it seems, a new video exposing the Muslim movement in the United States. Now, this one is put out by another gentleman who was a Muslim. He was a medical doctor, and his name was Zudi Jasser. And he exposes the radical part of this Islam movement, and it has a huge number of pictures about how they have actually found the documents from the Muslim Brotherhood where they state that they're going to take over the United States. There have been maybe a dozen or so terrorist activities that have been blocked in time, and then there's a whole lot more that were not blocked in the United States I'm talking about, and they were killed.
ما نعتقده أن جميع الأرض لا بد أن تكون تحت حكم الإسلام.
We believe Islam will dominate.
It's an entire movement, and the idea of it is hatred for our way of life.
فأمريكا إلى زوال والإسلام إلى بقاء.
The document states that their work in America is a kind of a grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within.
On our website, we talk about the Islamic State of North America by 2050.
Islam will dominate. That's what it will be.
Are you starting to see a pattern here? Is the Islamic State a threat to American security? Yes, it is.
We all know about terrorism. This is the war you don't know about.
Now, you say, what are the joys of women? These are pictures of women who were murdered because of what they call honor killing. In other words, they didn't wear the right kind of clothes, or didn't wear the hat on right, or they didn't have a veil on. So their father and brothers murdered them. And here's another one that was murdered. Let's see, doesn't say where that one was, but this one was in Tampa, Florida. This lady was murdered. A lot of them are because they didn't have the right kind of clothes on. Here's another one. She was tortured by her father before she was murdered in a Muslim honor killing. So you're talking about the joy of Muslim women. That's what they're talking about, is that they are under. Here's two more. I think they were talking to Christian men or something, and so they were murdered also by their relatives. Now, this is all part of the joy of Muslim women. These women did something wrong kind of clothes, or did something. So they threw acid in their face and blinded them and scarred them for life.
disfigurement is a basic process used by Islamic extremists to people who have violated what they interpret as any member of or violated any of the tenets of the Quran.
And Sharia
Sharia law.
So people say, oh, well, what's wrong with Sharia law? This is Sharia law.
We just had recently a one in Egypt where a man had stolen a motorcycle, and the individual people caught him, cut off his hands, and said, we have applied Sharia law, and called the police and said, now you can apply your law. And various types of that kind of activity, and someone who had listened to a Western movie or Western music had their ears cut off. And there's all sorts of what I call physical mutilation that's taking place in the Muslim world now.
Unbelievable. Here's more women that were punished under Sharia law. So, again, they had acid thrown in their face, and they were blinded and scarred. And there's just a huge number of them. Here are more. A lot of times they burned out one eye and not the other.
Right.
So this is Sharia law. So when they talk about Sharia law, they're talking about honor killings of women who, didn't wear the right kind of clothes, and and also this mutilation with acid. Here's more. There are just a huge number of these that have been documented. And the other thing you said, they try to circumcise women, which is some kind
this
of
is a
genital
process.
mutilation.
Right, exactly. That happens just at the first signs of puberty.
See, here's more. This is Sharia law, where they maim or disfigure these women because, they didn't wear the right kind of clothes or they said something. And that's what we're talking about when you talk about Sharia law and the Muslim takeover of the United States. Now, they're not going to try to take it over until they get enough people, but you can see that they're growing. They got 9 million now or more, and they're waiting till they get enough, and then they're going to try to take over.
Well, one of the things they're doing is trying to get certain things to be compromised. They will take, for example, the Muslim bus or cab drivers in Detroit are using Sharia law, saying that they will not allow a passenger who has a guard dog or a seeing eye dog with them is not allowed in their cab. Any tourist returning with a container of liquor that he bought at some foreign country or something was not allowed in their thing. And they're getting these concessions from the various authorities. They're also having a prayer room put in every one of the major airports, available only to Muslims and not available to any infidel, could not go into those rooms. And making these constant concessions one at a time, one at a time. The next thing will be that no woman with a shorts on or a short skirt will be allowed in a cab, or various other violations of that.
It's an incremental
and they will
process.
Slowly, one after another, continue to impose the Sharia law.
And a lot of this has already happened
Exactly,
in England and France and these European countries. And a lot of this is what you call informational warfare. In other words, they're saying, oh, we don't believe in jihad and terrorism, and we're against all this terrorism. And then they turn right around and try to increase terrorism. Like a lot of these mosques teach terrorism, teach children how to hate Jewish people, hate Americans, how to murder people, how to cut their head off. In that one DVD, it had a picture of a child cutting the head off of somebody. Unbelievable.
Well, these are the things that are going on, and it's slowly increasing in its activities. The Muslim Brotherhood is a classic example of some of the things they're doing. And it is also in the Quran and in the bill. Anything that furthers Islam, to be able to lie, to cheat, to steal,
Yeah.
to commit anything that would be offensive in any other religion is acceptable if it advances the goals of Islam.
Right.
And this is one of the things that happened after 9/11. That if people criticized that, they were saying, well, no, this was some terrorist group that we were
that
not.
the Jews blew it up or something like
That's
that.
right. So that you would not feel
Put it
that
all
they
together.
were part of it.
Yeah.
And it's a very insidious kind of thing, and one that is totally foreign to any American or anyone who has grown up and lived under freedom, because there is no freedom under Islam, only the laws of Sharia.
The thing that bothers me, you know how gas prices are going through the roof. And of course, they don't have to go through the roof. The reason they're going through the roof is the current administration will not let any more oil wells be built and no more refineries.
Exactly. We haven't held a new refinery in the United States in over 30 years.
Okay.
By the environmentalists, you have to file a environmental impact statement that takes years to process. The same thing is going on with the pipeline,
Yeah.
all the rest.
That pipeline from Canada that
Right.
a current administration wouldn't let in.
Exactly.
So the thing is, why is all that happening? Well, you know, people say, oh, it's the radical environmentalists. But the other thing is, Saudi Arabia is the #1 sponsor of terrorism in the world and in the United States. And, you know, the administration wants the money to go to Saudi Arabia so that they can keep producing more and more of this radical Sharia law and build more and more mosques and build more and more terrorist cells in the United States. So we think that that is a big part of why the current administration will not, and the other thing they're doing, not let any more wells be built or refineries, but they also are trying to, the EPA under this administration is trying to shut down the coal mines.
Right.
So that they won't let any more coal mining be done.
I find it ironic that we're cutting off all the support and all the sources of energy that produces electricity. At the same time, we're trying to convince the people that they need to drive an electric car.
Yeah.
That there'll be
Doesn't
no
make
source of
sense.
supply of electricity to run them.
The other thing is there is a lot of people going on television now saying that the Obama is a Muslim.
Right.
And he's made some slips over the years, and some people are putting this on CNN and different television networks, and we would like to try to put some of those into this program where you can see how there have been some slip-ups where Obama seems to be indicating or praising Islam and the Muslims, and how he's actually said he is Muslim.
Many other Americans have Muslims in their families or have lived in a Muslim-majority country. I know because I am one of them.
You're absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith.
But my father came from a Kenyan family that includes generations of Muslims. As a boy, I spent several years in Indonesia and heard the call of the azan at the break of dawn. I have known Islam on 3 continents before coming to the region where it was first revealed. That experience guides my conviction. I also know civilization's debt to Islam. It was Islam at places like Uluzar that carried the light of learning through so many centuries, paving the way for Europe's Renaissance and Enlightenment. It was innovation in Muslim communities that developed the order of algebra, our magnetic compass and tools of navigation, our mastery of pens and printing, our understanding of how disease spreads and how it can be healed. Islamic culture has given us majestic arches and soaring spires, timeless poetry and cherished music, elegant calligraphy, and places of peaceful contemplation. They have fought in our wars, they have served in our government, they have stood for civil rights, they have started businesses, they have taught at our universities, they've excelled in our sports arenas, they've won Nobel Prizes, built our tallest building, and lit the Olympic torch. And when the first Muslim American was recently elected to Congress, he took the oath to defend our Constitution using the same Holy Quran. Islam is not part of the problem in combating violent extremism. It is an important part of promoting peace. The enduring faith of over 1 billion people is so much bigger than the narrow hatred of a few. In the United States, rules on charitable giving have made it harder for Muslims to fulfill their religious obligation. That's why I'm committed to working with American Muslims to ensure that they can fulfill zakat. It is important for Western countries to avoid impeding Muslim citizens from practicing religion as they see fit. And I consider it part of my responsibility as President of the United States to fight against negative stereotypes of Islam wherever they appear. Let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America. America is not and never will be at war with Islam.
Well, one of the things that's happening in the Middle East right now, and one that's being pushed by some of the people in Egypt, is that they want to attack Israel this year, this summer. One of the reasons they want to make the move now is they think they have a friend in the, right or wrong, that they have a friend in the White House that will give them the opportunity to destroy Israel and the Jews.
Yeah.
So all these are being factored into what's going on in a global sense, and it's rather overwhelming to try to look at it because it's coming in so many different directions at the same time that it's hard to really get a grasp on what's really going on.
And all these videos that are coming out, and the books, and the emails. Well, listen, State Representative Holloway, we certainly appreciate you being here. We're running out of time, and we hope you'll tune in again next week for the rest of the news.